Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/Amiwrong, where a marriage counselor actually took the side of the cheater. Let's begin. You think the PT rules doesn't apply to you? Okay. Posted by Reddit user Javander.
Someone posted this military story about an entitled spouse, not soldier, and it reminded me of one of my own. In the 80 seconds I did my 19 Kelvin M1 tank crew basic and IT at Fort Knox, Kentucky. At that time, all the PT tests for graduating were administered a group of staff separate from all the training units. They were permanent staff under the division commander and administered PT tests for the entire training division, staff and trainees, probably under the assumption that it made cheating on scores less likely. Over time, they had developed a reputation for being tough but not fair, so much so that the drill instructors would make bets on how many of the soldiers in their platoons wouldn't pass on the first try, with 20% of the platoon, 6 soldiers out of 30, usually being a low estimate. They also had a reputation for being obnoxiously entitled about control of their area. Drill sergeants had been dressed down for interrupting them because they would be speaking to a soldier waiting their turn for testing. Just before we were scheduled to go be tested, our drill sergeants pulled us all into one of the sleeping quarters and shut the door. Every platoon was getting the same talk. They told us all a story. It turns out that one unit that had been scheduled for a PT test the previous week was the division commander's officer staff. They knew the PT drill. They walked in ready, took their seats, got their instructions, and waited their turns. Being officers in a cohesive unit, they started chatting while waiting. It didn't take long for the lead PT tester to decide that needed to stop. Hey, there will be no talking in my testing facility. The talking stopped, but every head swiveled from the tester to one man sitting on the bench. Sergeant, do you know who I am? He said quietly. I don't give a fuck who you are. There is no talking in my facility. The quiet man reached under the bench, picked up the cap he had worn to the building, and put it on. It said Coronel your boss, division commander. Somehow, it got even more quiet in the room. Still speaking quietly, the colonel said, I'm your boss. You will report to my office at 10 this morning, Sergeant. You and your staff are going to be scheduled for a PT test tomorrow. Your test will be administered by my staff, who will be strict but fair. Turns out, someone with access to the colonel had told him 2 facts. 1. The testers were not fair in their assessments. At least half of the people they failed should have passed. Everyone could expect to have at least a third of their push-ups and sit-ups not counted, those being the more subjective part of the test. 2. The PT testers had not themselves taken a test in 5 years. Unsurprisingly, all of the PT testers failed their test. They were put on notice by the colonel that they were going to be retested in 3 months. Anyone who failed again would be discharged for a PT failure to maintain operational readiness. They were expected to be more fair in their assessments from now on. Any more complaints of unfair assessments would see all of the testers transferred to other units to serve in their actual military occupational specialty because PT tester is not a military occupational specialty, it's an assigned duty. Our drill sergeants, after telling this story, let us know how excited they were that they were going to be the first training unit to get tested since the testers got put on notice. They also told some of us privately we were on their list as expected failures. Yes, I was one of them. I scored 210 to 220 in my weekly tests, with my weak score being push-ups, so they expected me to fail that. One last non-surprise. Our whole company passed the PT test. So did at least 2 more companies that were tested soon after us. I don't know if they ever went back to being more strict, but they definitely had the fear of God, or at least honest work, put into them.
OP, I am not in the military, so let me just clarify if I understood correctly. A bunch of fat-ass nobodies decided to power trip, got caught by their boss, and then hilariously failed the very same test they were overseeing. Now karma is knocking at their doors. Did I get everything correctly? And now for today's second story. Am I wrong for thinking my wife's relationship with a single male friend is inappropriate? Posted by a throwaway Reddit account.
I'm married to my wife for around 13 years with several small children. I've struggled with if what my wife is doing constitutes an emotional affair and trying to figure out if I am being unreasonable here. We worked together and last year she met a single male at a work conference. I was not there. The evening the conference was over, he Facebook friended her and messaged her immediately. I will add they have no work-related reason to have contact. They just work in the same industry. He is in a lower level position with another company and lives about an hour and a half from us. That same evening, I had to use her computer for another reason and the FB message notification popped up, which caught my attention. At this point, I had never spied on her before. They talked about how much fun they had at the conference and how my wife basically roasted him by joking about stuff and being funny picking on each other. They also talked about each other's families and were making sure they were not somehow related. She also jokingly told him the road name she used to live on, which sounds like a male body part. After they messaged each other for a couple of days, I confronted her and told her I didn't think it was appropriate to talk with him like this. I also asked her if she liked him or what the deal was. She said he was just an acquaintance she met and no feelings. She said she would stop messaging him. A few weeks later they resumed messaging and both messaged back and forth for 2 to 4 weeks but didn't talk every day. It was mostly innocent small talk and I confronted her again and this time got her to admit to me that she was attracted to him and she had a crush on him. She reluctantly agreed again not to message him. In the meantime, she started liking and hearting his FB stories, not posts, and never anyone else's. He would message her first every few months and talk about things like work industry related and other small talk. Never anything overtly sexual or our relationship. He did tell her about this girl he found on a dating app that was pretty and reminded him of my wife. I will add my wife never again messaged him first, but would always respond to his messages and keep it going for a few days back and forth. Months would go by between when he messaged her, so it was not like they were talking every week or even every month. So in August this year, he messaged her again and she responded and they did small talk and she wanted to know if he was going to the conference again this year. Unfortunately, his boss would not let him go this year due to budget restrictions. My wife proceeded to try to give him reasons he could tell his boss to let him go. He tried and his boss still wouldn't let him. My wife jokingly told him she was starting to feel rejected here because he couldn't find a way to go. These messages only lasted 2 days. I confronted her again about the issue. She advised it was her job to get as many people to attend as possible and there was nothing wrong with it. She is on the board which coordinated the conference, but I'm not aware of her contacting other people to make sure they attend again. We went to see a marriage counselor about this issue in September. My wife had suggested an open marriage to me during an argument around 6 years ago, but later said she really didn't mean it and was just mad at me at the time. He basically said I can't keep her from having male friends, but that we need to have boundaries. So, we agreed as did the counselor that she should be able to talk with this guy but if they message each other, she should let me know and say here it is all out in the open, no secrets. So, recently, after her continuing to like his FB stories around once every couple of weeks, he messaged her first again and they made small talk. My wife proceeded to invite him to an upcoming golf tournament with the same organization that hosted the conference where I will not be there, and she is helping coordinate it. They would both be playing in the tournament on different teams, but still get to talk and maybe have lunch but with a group of other people. She has not told me about him messaging her and does not know that I know. I have not said anything to her. Just trust me on the fact that I know they were not talking on other platforms and nothing happened at that first conference. I am 100% sure of this. She was directly messaging him and initiating contact during the first month last year. However, after that she hasn't directly contacted him in over a year. He always contacts her every few months after her liking his stories. She doesn't shut it down though and continues to message for 1 to 2 days and then they both stop. In August, she told me and the marriage counselor that she doesn't have a crush on him anymore and that I ruined it for her by talking about it so much. Is she just being polite with this guy since he is the one who keeps contacting her? She didn't have to invite him to play in the golf tournament, which is concerning. If she liked him, I just don't see why she wouldn't be messaging him first and not waiting months for him to message her. She could obviously take this further and speed it along if she wanted to, but she isn't. She says he is just a friend and an acquaintance now with no feelings.
OP, she doesn't message him first because she likes the fact that this dude is chasing her. Look man, she already said she wanted an open relationship years ago. That is a definite sign that she was already having an affair with someone else at the time. It was not the first and definitely will not be the last. Also, your marriage counselor sucks ass. Dude, what kind of counselor would say it is a good idea for a married woman to continue contact with someone she has a crush on? What a fucking idiot. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.